Dear learner, welcome to our continuing lessons in human resource management on the platform of Manifested Publishers e-platform. Today we are going to look at the subtopic of human resource administration. So the subject is human resource management, and the topic that we are going to look at today in human resource management is human resource administration. And this topic of human resource administration has several subtopics. We are going to get an opportunity to look at employee contracts, which are very crucial in human resource management. We are also going to look at human resource records management. We will also look at human resource management information systems, employee welfare services. Then we'll also look at health, safety, policies and procedures. Then we will also look at basics of payroll management. And ultimately, we will be able to have a look at employee discipline. So our subtopic today is employee contracts. Employee contracts. So Lana, welcome to the lesson. So what we need to appreciate as students and those interested in human resource management is that employee contracts, like in any other engagement, are very critical and central in terms of the agreement between the employer and employee. And when it comes to employee contracts, these ones are agreements that may be entered into orally or in written between an employer and an employee in relation to terms of service. So employee contracts refer to agreements that are entered into between an employer and an employee regarding a service of employment. Employee contracts may be oral or in writing. So dear learner, it is important to appreciate that employee contracts refer to agreements that are entered into between an employer and an employee regarding service of employment, and employee contracts may be oral or may be in writing. Now, the burden of ensuring that the employee contract is in writing, according to the law, is placed on the employer. So as a human resource practitioner, you will be expected to ensure that regardless of where you are as an employee or an employer or representing an employer, employee contracts are entered into. So what are some of the basic information in contracts of employment? Basic information in contracts of employment. Basic information in contracts of employment. So it is important, learner, that a contract of employment captures some basic information, and this basic information is what can be used to enforce a contract of employment in cases of a dispute between an employer and an employee. So the first thing that should be there, names of employer and employee. Names of the employer and employee. This is very important so that this identifies that this contract is between employee A and organization B. That is very important, that must be captured. Then there is the element of the job title. Job title. So if, for example, the employee is being employed as an office administrator or as a company secretary, then that one should be indicated that this is the name of the employee and the job title for which this employee is being employed is, for example, company secretary, is, for example, human resource manager, for that matter. Then duties and responsibilities. You may have location of work. Then you also have duties and responsibilities. Duties and responsibilities of that given employee. Then you may have terms and conditions of employment. Then you may also have number 6, the date when the contract is signed. The date when the contract is signed. 7, the commencement date. Date of the contract. You may also have an indication of the law that may prevail or be used in case of a dispute. Like, for example, if this is in the Kenyan situation, then the Employment Act 2007 may be used. Then 9, the working hours. Working hours of the employee. Then you have number 10, the privileges. Privileges and benefits. Then you have 11, leave entitlements. Then you have number 12, termination requirements. For example, notice, pay in lieu of notice. And then number 13, union representation. Now, dear learner, when it comes to the basic information, this will vary from position to position, but these are some of the aspects that need to be covered. And when you talk about the name of the employer and the employee, we have discussed that. The title, we have said, for example, the employee could be a company secretary, or human resource manager. So that has to be indicated. Then the location of work, maybe this particular person, the work, maybe the person is based in Nakuru or Nairobi. So that has to be indicated. Then duties and responsibilities that this particular individual may be doing. Then here, there will be specifics. For example, if it's the company secretary in charge of the company secretarial duties in that particular organization, if it is a human resource manager, then it could be, for example, recruitment, training, reward management. Then when it comes to terms and conditions, now the terms and conditions will indicate, for example, is this particular individual entitled to, let's say, a car or maybe a house or reimbursement or to authorize certain things and so on. Then the date when the contract is signed, that is very critical. Commencement date of the contract, the law that may be used, and we have said here, for example, in Kenya, for example, Employment Act 2007 could be the law, the main law that may be used if this particular, for example, contract is in the Kenyan situation. Then you have the working hours. Maybe this employee is supposed to have maybe a 40-week work, or maybe the employee is supposed to have 8 hours per day for 5 days. And this could, for example, be indicated that this is from Monday to Friday. So then that becomes very clear that these are the working hours of this particular employee and so on. Then you have privileges and benefits. For example, if this employee has to travel, maybe air travel, you may say the employee is entitled maybe to business class or economy class, for example. So that has to be indicated for purposes of administration of this particular contract. Then you have leave entitlements. So this particular person could, for example, have 30 days annual leave, for example, per year. Then you have termination requirements in terms of notice, maybe 1 month notice, 2 weeks notice, pay in lieu of notice if the person has to leave, union representation. And in the union representation, this is where applicable. Some of the employees may not be unionizable. So these are just some of the basic aspects that should be captured in a contract of employment. There are also other aspects that are also critical. For example, an employee may be in terms of maternity leave or paternity leave, that is also important. Then you also have what you call public holidays. That is also important to be indicated. Then you also have allowances that may be specific to this particular job and so on. Then you also have confidentiality clauses. For example, in some organizations, an employee may be informed that the employee will not be able to participate in the kind of business the employer is doing until, say, after 2 years. So that then becomes a confidentiality clause that the employee is supposed to participate in and so on. So, dear learner, these are just some. We can go through them again. We have indicated that employee contracts refer to the agreements that are entered into between an employer and an employee regarding a service of employment, and these employment contracts can be oral or can be in writing. Now, what are some of the basic aspects that should be covered in a contract of employment? So one, we have indicated names of employer and employee is important. Then the job title, for example, company secretary or human resource manager. Then the location of work where the employee will be performing their work, for example, Nakuru, Nairobi, and so on should be specified. Then duties and responsibilities should be specified. Specifics should be provided. Then terms and conditions of employment under which that employee is operating must also be provided. Then the date when the contract is signed, that is important. Then the commencement date of the contract. Then the law that may be used or may prevail in cases of disputes. And we have said in Kenya, the employment contract is governed mainly under the Employment Act 2007. Then the working hours of the employee, for example, 40 hours per week or 8 hours per day for 5 days from Monday to Friday. That should also be indicated. Then privileges and benefits, for example, air travel. Will the employee travel business class or economy class? Leave entitlements. The contract must be very clear that this particular employee is entitled to 30 days, maybe in a calendar year. Then there is the element of termination requirements, for example, notice, pay in lieu of notice, that should also be provided. Union representation, where applicable, should be indicated. Maternity leave, if the employee is entitled, for example, to 90 days, maternity leave, and maybe 14 days, maybe paternity leave, that should also be indicated. The public holidays should be indicated that in any given one calendar year, this particular employee is able to enjoy the public holidays, then allowances due, then confidentiality clauses. And what we are saying, dear learner, these ones are just some of the aspects. There are others, for example. How will sickness be handled? And this one brings us to what is called sick leave. Sick leave. It is important that it is indicated if an employee falls sick, maybe the first, say, 30 days, the employee will be on sick leave, maybe with full pay. That is important. Maybe the next 30 days, employee will be on sick leave, maybe with half pay. So that should come out very clearly in the contract of employment. So confidentiality clauses, sickness, terms of sick leave, and also aspects like grievance handling procedure, and other aspects like now intellectual property. Intellectual property. So when it comes to aspects like intellectual property, some workers may come up with some inventions. So if an employee comes up with an invention, how will that be handled? It's very important. The grievance handling procedure should also be documented very well. So learner, these are some of the aspects that should be brought out very clearly, and failure to bring out these aspects in the employment contract sometimes has created a lot of challenges. So we have come to the end of our lesson today, and before we finish, I need to give you an assignment which you need to work on. Assignment. And your assignment is assess the basic information that should be contained in a contract of employment. So dear learner, this is your assignment for today's lesson. Assess the basic information that should be contained in a contract of employment. So until we meet for the next lesson, I want to thank you for being active in our lesson today, which was employee contracts, a lesson on employee contracts, which is a subtopic in our human resource management administration unit under the human resource management subject of the certified secretaries. So thank you very much.